Let's see. Yo, yo, yo. It's Dream Factory. Sign in the chat. See.
So here we go. We're live. Boom, you live. I'm running.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
See, how the fuck I supposed to sign in? It said I gotta sign in the chat. Can you type in on the chat? Oh damn, hold on. It's trying to load up. Stop.
It's a delay though, but it's all good.
It's a bad delay?
No, because most of the time when you go live, the delay be like, anywhere between 5 to 15 seconds, no matter what.
Hmm. What kind of delay is it? Like it's like can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly fine.
How's my audio? Do I sound like shit?
It's clear. No, it's clear.
Cause I got my mic. Hold on, let me see. I don't even have my mic on. Hold on, let me see if it get clear. How about now? Can you hear me now? Better? I'll do it sound the same. Thank you, baby. Huh? Can you hear me better? Can you hear me better? No, because I got my body mic hooked up. Is somebody else in here? I just heard another nigga. Oh shit, that's me. Damn, that delay is crazy.
Because I got my.
I mean, this is just a strange. This is just. Hey, this is just a practice. Hey, this is not a real official live. Hey, this is not, this is not passion. The connect. Yes. Griffin here. Hey, this is just a test live. When people started coming this motherfucker.
Just a straight. This is just a practice. Hey, this is not a real official live. Hey, the connect. Griffin here. Just a people. A real official live.
Need to coordinate food deliveries to multiple locations? Let Domino's Pizza Concierge take it off your plate for seamless.
How do banks work? What do banks actually do with the money that we put into our bank account? And how can banks go bust, and what can we do to protect ourselves from banks going bust? What is the stock market? How do we buy and sell shares? And once we've bought and sold shares, what do those shares actually entitle us to? We're going to explore all of these questions today in my lecture on how the financial system works. This is the second in my Gresham College series on basic financial literacy. Thank you very much to everybody both in person and online for attending. So let me start with the first question, which is how banks work. And a good place to start is to consider what a bank actually is. A bank is just like a shop, but rather than buying and selling clothes, what you're buying and selling is money. So I think a good analogy to have is, well, how do shops work? Well, what do we have in a shop is we have some suppliers, so they might be clothes manufacturers, and a retail store.
Rather than buying.
Is that my screen doing that?
Happiness is
To your
finding
lives.
your rhythm
A little bit
between
bad.
the roar of the ocean
You listen
and
to
the
my
echo
live
of
now?
friends' laughter.
Yeah, 2 sets of headphones, so like you probably hear
It's the exhilaration
Live.
found in
even
renowned
though
cuisine
you live
and
right now.
shopping.
I have
the
both sets of
inspiration of-
headphones. I just took them
Let's
off.
say Marks and Spencer, that will buy the
So
clothes
it'll
from the
play my audio
And
from
they
my
might buy
page
100
from what I'm
shirts,
looking
and
at
those
too, right?
shirts they might buy at £5
Yeah.
each. And then what does the shop do? The
Like, I'm
shop
listening
then
to the
turns
video
around
playing on-
and
on the
sells
YouTube
those
video right now.
shirts to customers, us, when we go to the shop. And they'll sell for more than they buy. They might buy the shirts for £5 and sell them for £9. And the difference between the two, that will partially
Oh damn! What the fuck I do? Oh my bad. Yeah, why was this at?
That's it right there. That's about it.
So that's what I was saying. So I can have that right there playing on like a 24-hour live. Oh, hold on.
How do banks work? What do banks actually do with the money that we put into our bank account? And how can banks go bust, and what can we do to protect ourselves from banks going bust? What is the stock market? How do we buy and sell shares? And once we've bought and sold shares, what do those shares actually entitle us to? We're going to explore all of these questions today in my lecture on how the financial system works. This is the second in my Gresham College series on basic financial literacy. Thank you very much to everybody both in person and online for attending. So let me start with the first question, which is how banks work. And a good place to start is to consider what a bank actually is. A bank is just like a shop, but rather than buying and selling clothes, what you're buying and selling is money. So I think a good analogy to have is, well, how do shops work? Well, what do we have in a shop is we have some suppliers, so they might be clothes manufacturers,
I appreciate
and a
that,
retail
OE.
store,
What is
let's
that?
say Marks and Spencer, that
OEV54.
will buy the
Appreciate
clothes
that.
from the
I'm
supplier.
uploading the video. I want
And
y'all
they
to
might buy 100
take heed
shirts,
to it.
and those shirts they might buy at £5 each. And then what does the shop do? The shop then turns around and sells those shirts to customers, us, when we go to the shop. And they'll sell for more than they buy. They might buy the shirts for £5 and sell them for £9. And the difference between the two, that will partially be their profit, but it also partially goes to some costs that shops have to bear. For example, they need to operate the stores, put on the lights, hire the staff. But also an important function is to screen. What does this mean? This means to check the suppliers of the shirts that they're selling to make sure the shirts are not going to fall apart. But also they might check, are the shirts made in an ethical way? Are they using child labour and so forth? But that's how a shop works. It's a way of connecting buyers and sellers. It's not that the shirt manufacturer directly sells to us. The shop is what's known as an intermediary. And that's exactly what a bank is. Right? We often hear a bank as being a financial intermediary. What it does is it connects suppliers of money to customers who need money. But suppliers of money, they're often known as depositors. So it might be that I earn money from my job. I don't need all of that money to pay my rent and to pay my food. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to supply some money to the bank. I'm going to deposit my money in a bank account. And what am I going to get from that? As we considered in the last lecture, I get interest. So the interest that I get for putting money in the bank, that is a bit like what the clothes manufacturer gets by selling the clothes to Marks and Spencer. And so let's say I'm going to lend £100 at 5%. I'm just going to keep the numbers the same as last time to make things simple. And so what does the bank do? The bank then turns around and then lends that money to other people. And the customers of a bank are known as borrowers. And why might they need that money? Well, for a variety of purposes. They might want to buy a house, but the cost of the house is more than the money they have. They might want to fund their children's education. They might want to renovate their house. They might want to buy a car. All of those things are reasons why people might want to borrow money. And just like the shop, the bank will charge more to its customers, the borrowers, than it pays its suppliers, the depositors. It might borrow at 5% and lend at 9%.
If you are incapable of finding a match, you shall remain here with me instead. Get out and see the world. I'm scared. Mary, you will flourish.
And what does that difference go towards? Well, the analogy continues. Partly it's profits, partly it's operating the actual bank, right? You need to run the branches. Partly it's screening. Although there's a big difference here, right? With Marks and Spencer, you screen the suppliers, the people who actually provide you with the shirts. But here, as a bank, they screen the borrowers, right? Before you can borrow from the bank, you need to fill in some forms. You need to declare your income to make sure that you can pay it back. But there's one other thing that I like to add here, which is monitoring, right? When you are a shop, once the transaction is completed, you might just forget about the customer. So once I've sold my shirt to the customer, there is no future relationship unless the customer wants to return the shirt because it's faulty. But when you're a bank and you lend to a borrower, right, that relationship continues for the lifetime of a loan. If it's a mortgage, it could be 25 years. And what you might do is you might continue to monitor the borrower. For example, if they miss one mortgage payment, as might have happened during the pandemic, you might check and you might forgive them. You might think, well, actually, I'm checking why they did this. Actually, I think they will pay it back in the future, so I'm going to keep the loan live. But it might be in some cases you need to take more active action. Why? Because what you're concerned about is that the borrower might not pay back the money. Right, so here the borrower's borrowed £100. What happens if the borrower can't pay you back? Well, what most banks do when they lend money is they take what's known as security, or otherwise known as collateral. So what the borrower does is pledges to the bank an asset and says to the bank, if I don't pay you back, right, you're allowed to get that asset. Right, some of you will know what a pawnbroker does. Right, if I want to pawn off like an item of jewellery, I go to the pawnbroker and I say, lend me some money, and if I don't pay you back, you can keep that jewellery. And that's the same with a bank, although the security is typically not jewellery, it might be something like a house. And that's indeed what a mortgage is. It is a loan, but it's a loan where the security is your house. So if you don't pay back your mortgage, then the bank takes that house from you. Right, so that's why they often say your house is at risk if you don't keep up your mortgage payments. So that does provide some security to the bank, hence the name, because right, if the borrower can't pay back the loan, maybe the borrower loses his or her job, the bank can still get the house. But it only provides partial security. Why? Let's say you lend £100 to the borrower, and the borrower has a house worth £100. The borrower goes bankrupt, you actually get the house yourself, but if you want to sell that house and to pay back your depositors, you often won't get £100 for that. Why? You often have to sell in a hurry. And that's what happened in the financial crisis, right? We had a lot of banks which needed to sell houses, but they couldn't get the true value. So they have to sell at what's known as a discount, and maybe the bank might only get £90. So then, given that, what does the bank do to begin with? Right, if we go back to the shop, what does a shop try and do? The shop tries to sell everything it buys. If the shop buys 100 shirts from its supplier, it tries to sell all 100 shirts to its customers. But interestingly, for a bank, it doesn't want to do that. Right, if it borrows £100 from depositors, people like you and I, who put our money into the bank account, it might not want to lend out the entire £100. Because no matter how careful it's been, no matter how much security it is taking for its loans, there is a chance that people won't pay it back, and the security it won't be able to liquidate for that full value. So what the bank does is the bank holds a fraction of the deposits in reserve. So rather than lending out the entire 100, it might keep £10 in reserve and lend only 90. And this is called fractional reserve banking. Right? You don't try to lend out everything you get, you keep a fraction in reserve. And how this operates in reality is that in every country, there is a banking regulator which sets that fraction. Right? That fraction reduces the risk that the bank goes bust, because it means that the bank cannot lend out everything it gets. It needs to keep something in reserve. And notice, the regulator might set a number, let's say it's 5%, but a bank might choose to be even more careful, even more prudent, and choose a different number, let's say 10%, because it wants to reduce its risk. And that 10% is what we're going to work with. Now, here's an interesting thing. So let's go back to the depositor putting £100 in the bank.
Welcome to this week's episode of Valera TV. My name is Carissa Upshur, and I am here with Rennie Fredette, Senior Vice President of Contact Center Services and Solutions. You know, Rennie, I'm so excited to spend a few moments here with you talking about the contact center and where it's at in the industry. You know, it's come quite a ways. The landscape has completely evolved. Where do you see the most significant shift within the industry?
The story is really about not new technology, but useful technology. We've seen over a couple years all the new technology that was out there and everybody running to get it and implement it. But it made the experience really kind of clunky. That there was no connection between one system to another for the member experience in totality. So there's a big shift now in trying to bring that experience together. A lot of self-service has been a big piece of it, and self-service is wonderful for our members, right? They like to be able to get things done quickly. But it has also led to a shift in the call mix in the contact center. So now easy things are answered through self-service, and what comes to an agent is a much more complex call. So the focus in the last little bit now is on how do you create that experience now for the agent to make it easier for them to do their jobs because they're getting those harder calls now. So you have to give them the right tools and the right knowledge and enablement in order to really self-serve or to serve that member and create an amazing experience at the same time.
So with the credit unions facing pressures from technology shifts, member expectations, and even the cost realities, where do you see the contact center playing its most pivotal role?
So the contact center is a treasure trove of data. We get so much information and insights just in the interaction on the call that I think a lot of organizations and call centers don't take advantage of quite yet. So I think leveraging that data and finding ways to use Gen AI to help look through that data, find opportunities to improve the experience for the member, identify possible products the member is asking for, and even friction points. And how do we be more proactive in meeting the member where they are and with what they need? Even making the right offer to the right member at the right time. All that comes through the data that we can see and have access to, and presenting that to the agent to have in real time is a big critical opportunity.
Rennie, you've often talked about the power of partnership and scale. What does that look like in practical application for credit unions leveraging contact center partners?
A true partnership is really about meeting the institution where they need us, right? Whether it's scaling up, scaling down, or scaling across. It all just depends on what they need at that time. We have scale that, you know, a lot of credit unions don't. And so if their systems go down, they want to have a special event for their contact center, or they want to do team meetings, they can do that through their partnerships, right? That things that they wouldn't normally be able to do otherwise without negatively impacting members who are waiting for calls on the line. I think that's an important part of a partnership, but it's also about sharing best practices.
Sure.
In the call center, you know, we all share best practices. We talk to our advisory groups, we talk to our other credit union contact center leaders. And I mean, we're all in the fire together in the contact center.
Sure.
And I think the more we share best practices together, credit unions sharing with other credit unions, with their partners, it really helps the industry move forward together.
Sure. The entire philosophy of people helping people.
100%.
Yeah.
So I was having conversations in the last couple weeks with some of our other credit unions in regards to like, what does the future look like? And I think the next frontier for contact center is really around predictive analytics and predictive engagement. And how do we use the data, like we talked about earlier, and Gen AI and, you know, the future of adjacent AI, how do we use that information to really start to understand who's calling in and what they're calling in for, even before they make the phone call.
Sure.
Right. But we can't do it in a way that feels uncomfortable for the member experience, right? We don't want to answer the phone and say, oh, I know what you're calling for already. You're calling me about this and here's your answer. But what we can do is have the agent already know what might be coming up, what just recently happened in the 360 of that member with their financial institution that could be driving that call, so that when the member is ready to ask for it, they can go right into the answer.
Yeah.
Now, that is a super cool experience, and it helps make the call much more efficient for the member as well as for the credit union, but also gives a really good experience to the member.
Yeah. That connected experience and approach to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Rennie, thank you so much for joining us and spending time together answering some of our questions and talking about the contact center industry. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Valera TV.
The bank that lends £90 to a borrower, I've creatively named Borrower A, so they're borrowing that money. And why are they borrowing that money? Well, what they want to do is they want to hire a tutor for their children. So let's say they're going to hire a piano teacher. And so they're going to be paying £90 in piano lessons to that piano teacher. But here's the really interesting thing. What is that piano teacher going to do with that money? Well, she might put it back into the bank. And then the bank now has some extra £90. And then what will the bank do with that £90? It's going to lend out.
Now, I want y'all to really listen to this part right here.
It's going to keep 10% in reserve.
Because this right here is how this works. This is how this system works.
To another borrower. And you can see how this will continue. That borrower will spend the money. The person who receives that money will put it back in the bank. And so what we have is a virtuous circle where money is being created. Right? You take in some money, you lend it, then what you lend gets deposited back. And so what you have is a table which looks like this. We started with the original £100 of money, which was put in. £90 was lent, £10 was kept in reserve. That £90 was put back in the bank. 90% of that was lent, the rest was put in reserve, and so on and so forth. And in the end, after all of this is played through, if this keeps happening, what happens is the bank overall has taken £1,000 of deposits, it's kept £100 in reserve, again 10%, and it's created £900 of loans. And so this is the most fundamental feature of what banks actually do. It is called money creation. Out of the original £100 that the bank has been given, it's actually created £1,000 of money in terms of the total amount that it's lent to customers and the total amount that it is created, it's borrowing from customers in the form of its deposits. And why is money creation so powerful? Right, because it allows people to do stuff that they might not be able to afford. Well, it allows the parents to pay the piano teacher when they might not have money, they could borrow it. It might allow somebody else to renovate their home. And so this is why banks have a positive role in society. It allows people to do things which their current finances might not have. Now, there's a couple of things I'd like to stress here. Right, the bank has created money, which is why I've called it money creation, but the bank hasn't made money.
You need to have something that's magnetic. It pulls people in. You have to tell a story, even though the pitch itself is about data and objectivity.
It needs to have some kind of pizzazz, something to hook the audience.
And you need to really display an understanding of the investment controversy and then where your view is differentiated.
I want to see that they understand what the business does. They understand the bull and bear case.
Why do you have a variant view? What proprietary work have you done? What are you seeing that the market's not seeing?
Every GeoGuessr player starts somewhere. This is somewhere?
Enough. Time to
to get into shape. Download Opera GX with the official GeoGuessr mod. Hit the Geo Gym Hub to train your GeoGuessr skills with custom mini-games. Grind every day to finally hit that sweet 5K.
Right, because each time the bank lends money to somebody else, right, money has left the bank, but it's been replaced by the fact that it's owed the money. And if you look at the bottom line here, at the end, the bank has £1,000 in deposits. So customers like you and I have put £1,000 in the bank account. The bank owes us 1,000, but similarly, the bank owns 1,000. The bank has kept 100 in reserve, and the bank is owed £900 from all the mortgages and so on that it's lent out. So the bank's net position is zero here, right? It owes this, it owes that. Just like after one step, the bank's net position was also zero, so the bank hasn't made any money in the process. It's just allowed people to do transactions through creating money. But then you might think, well, how does the bank actually make money? Well, how the bank makes money is, as I mentioned on the second slide, what it will pay the depositors will be a 5% interest rate, but what it will charge its customers, its borrowers, will be 9%, and it makes money on the difference between that two. Okay? And then you might think, well, how did I get to this 1,000? Right? Well, one thing is I could have gone through this entire table for ages, but there's a trick, and those of you who do GCSE maths, you might sort of know this. What you do is you take the original deposit, you multiply it by 1 divided by the reserve ratio. So remember, we said 10% was how much they were keeping back. 1 over 10% is 10. And so this means that you're multiplying everything that you get 10 times by creating more money. Right, that makes sense, right? The smaller you keep in reserve, the smaller the reserve ratio, the more you can lend out, the more money you're creating, and therefore you have a greater money multiplier. The money that you get in is multiplied by many, many times. So let's go back to the idea about how banks actually make money for themselves. Right? So they've taken in £1,000 in deposits, they lend out £900, and they're lending out at a higher interest rate than what they borrow. And so that's pretty simple to make money. Right? As my economics A-level teacher said in class, right, banks, they receive more interest than they pay. You'd have to be pretty stupid not to be able to make money as a banker. Which led my classmates to say to me, Alex, even you could make money as a banker. But what is the risk here? Right? Well, the risk is the following. The depositors, you and I who have bank accounts, we are lending short term. Right? We can withdraw our money at any time. Right? With the current account, you want to have what's known as liquidity, the ability to get your money when you want to. Why? Because I have no idea when I might be in a car accident, or I need to redo my pipes, or so on. I want that flexibility. But the people who borrow from the bank, they want to borrow long term. Right? So with a mortgage often is lasting 25 years. Why? Because it might take 25 years to pay off the mortgage. It's so high compared to my income. And the people who borrow from banks are not just people, they might be companies. And a company might borrow in order to develop a cancer cure, and it might take, again, 25 years to develop that cancer cure and commercialise it. So this is the big problem, is that banks borrow short term, but they lend long term. And so, in addition to those three things I mentioned earlier, the banks do one other thing, which is called maturity transformation. So what do I mean by maturity? Maturity means the length of a loan. The bank transforms short-term lending by us when we put that money into the bank account into long-term loans that it provides its customers, and it allows them to pursue their long-term projects, be it buying a house, funding your children's education, or investing in account secure. But that comes at a risk. And what is the risk? Often we think that with the bank, the risk is the project that you lend to. Maybe the company you lend to is going to go bankrupt. But let's say the bank has done a fantastic job at screening and monitoring, and its customers will always repay. They will never go bankrupt. But still, there's a risk because of this maturity mismatch. What happens if the depositors suddenly want to withdraw more than £100? Right? So, what the bank will need to do is it will want to liquidate its loans and ask its customers to pay them back. But it can't, right? Because if you've got a mortgage from the bank, you need to pay back every month what you agreed. If the bank asks you, can you pay me back earlier? You say, no, I took out a 25-year mortgage. I can repay you on the schedule that we said. I'm not going to repay you earlier. I don't have the money.
Did you know that an electric car contains nearly 3,000 semiconductors? Don't just use technology, invest in it.
Come in
with
and interject
SMH by Van Eck.
right here, real quick, because he's
So what does the bank
only
do in that
allowed
situation? If the bank needs
to
something,
hold on real quick.
well, what it
Stop
might
it.
do is it might say,
So he's only allowed to, expose the bank so much. He can't really expose the bank too much because they got what's called the Bank Secrecy Act. And on the Bank Secrecy Act, they're allowed to keep their internal mechanisms, how they work internally, not exposed to the public. It's public information though. But they have a law to where they're not obligated to tell you like what they're actually doing with your deposit, or they're not obligated to send you any type of accounting that has happened with the deposit, according to the Bank Secrecy Act. So it protects the integrity of their bank and the bankers and the depositors and the investors money, because if everyone knew like what happens with this, okay, somebody just asking for their accounting, this, that, and third, only way that you will be able to get really the full accounting for all the banking, what he's talking about, as far as when you go make a loan for $1,000, when you go and deposit money for $1,000, they go and loan out 90%. They only so you put $1,000 in the bank, they loan out 900, but they only got to keep 10% on reserves, and then so on and so forth. So from your $100, they have created times 10. They only can max out your deposit 10 times. That makes sense? They're only able to max out your deposit 10 times. So if they're keeping 90% on, and they're keeping they're only keeping 10% on hand, and they're loaning out the rest. That means that you have an accounting and a restricted ledger that you don't really too much have access to, because they currently have it up for liquidation, or they have it given out to their investors, or they're doing their cash reserves. Also, everybody that's in here, this is my very first YouTube live. I'm finna go to start going live on YouTube quite often. So I want you all to, stay tuned, and we're gonna try to build. We're gonna try to build. From this point on, my boy MMG Scotty, he actually helped me set this up so I can be able to educate you all, and we work on this information together. He's more on the court side. I'm more on the banking side, but we are still, doing this thing and knocking this thing out.
Sell the loan to somebody else. Right, so if I own a bank and I'm owed sort of £100 by my mortgage customers, I might go to Claire and say, I need the money now. I'll give you this £100 of loans if you pay me £50. Right? But that's the problem, is that when I need to raise money as a bank, I often will have to accept the same liquidity discount that I mentioned earlier. And so let's say, just for easy numbers, what happens if a bank can only sell its loans for 50%, £450? Then what this means is that if depositors want to withdraw at least £550, the bank will go bankrupt because the bank only has 100 in reserve plus 450, which is what it can get from selling its loans early. So this is really powerful, but it's also really scary. So what it might mean is banks can go bust even if they invest in perfectly safe stuff. Even if every company and every person it's lent to will eventually pay back the bank after 25 years. The problem is a short-term, long-term thing. Sometimes the bank might need to sell early because its people are wanting the money back right now. So what is the bank hoping? The bank is hoping that at any point in time, depositors won't withdraw more than £100. Right, and why might that be a reasonable assumption? Because what causes people to withdraw their money early? Those are things that are random. So it might be that I will withdraw 1 year, maybe in 2022, because I need to build a new kitchen. Maybe Claire might withdraw in 2023 because she wants to go on vacation. Maybe James wants to withdraw in 2024. Why? Because he wants to send a child to university or something like that. Right, and if these things are random, then it's probably reasonable to think that only £100 or less will be withdrawn in every year. So it's fine to only keep £100 in reserve. But what if we all want to withdraw at the same time? And what will cause that is something known as a bank panic. What happens if we are all really worried and we all think that the bank is going to go bankrupt? Right? So this is what happened in the financial crisis. If I believe that actually everybody else wants to withdraw, then I might also want to withdraw myself, even if I don't need the money, because I want to make sure that I want to withdraw while the bank still has cash in it. And so this is what we saw, right, in the financial crisis. Places like Northern Rock had people queuing up to get money. Why? Not because they needed money, right, but because they thought that the bank would run out of money. And so this is a very scary thing, which is known as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? So the bank could be fundamentally safe. It could
And I want to touch on this part right here too, because the main part that stuck out to me is when he said that banks could possibly go bust, which is bullshit. Because 9 times out of 10 he's a part of diplomacy or a part of HSBC that is running a larger financial institution. He had to have been a securities officer or a chief executive officer or a indentured trustee to even know the information that he's actually having a TED talk about. But you have to be very careful when you're speaking to the masses about the internal operations of a financial institution, because once the cat is out the bag, it's out the bag. Now, but if you actually want to go and search for information concerning this particular institution, if you're looking at Santander or Ally Bank, a lot of fintech banks, they operate solely based off of the liquidity of the lower economy. That's why you see whenever you're trying to make a purchase, they got Afterpay, Square Cash, Block. They got all these other mechanisms that if you're not like really credit savvy or have a lot of credit, then they'll give you a loan according to your bank transactions. Like the deposits that you make, your occurrences that happens in your bank account, like how much are you actually moving through your bank. So banks they can go bust, but they got mechanisms set up just in case. They got a program called the BIC program. It's operating on the Federal Circular 10. And what that does, it allows banks that doesn't have the liquidity to give its customers back the money, they give them a loan. They go to this thing called the federal discount window. And the federal discount window gives them loans according to their needs. Once they get the money back up, they might give them a loan for 8 months, 10 months, however, even though they are creating this money to give them the loan. That's not for the bank to say, okay, well, you're creating the money, so we're not going to pay you back. No, that's why I tell everybody, it's not about the sovereignty movement shit and how people be trying to finesse this or finesse that. No, it's not a situation like that. You have accounts payable, you have accounts receivable, you got double book entry, and you got normal deposits. You got treasury debt, you got treasury obligations. All of these are still mechanisms of the Federal Operating Circular to you have to abide by once you agree. Now, once we start paying attention to our contracts and we see that, okay, we're down. It's like I'm just gonna say, for instance, Credit Strong. Credit Strong got that Magnum program. Go here, pull it up, because I was talking about this earlier. I was talking about it earlier. Let's see. Damn, what the fuck? I was talking about, what I was talking about earlier is Credit Strong got the Magnum program. And what they do is they'll have you they'll do a $5,000 promissory note that you're going to pay back $5,000 to them with interest. But you never get the $5,000. They just hold it in their reserves so they can go and continue to do this. Yeah, Credit Strong, use Credit Strong, buy my first property. Yeah, so what they'll do is they'll get the $5,000, hold the $5,000 in their reserves, but you never be able to touch it. You can, but on the contract, as far as the face value of the contract, your terms of agreement says that they are to get all the interest and dividends that is created from the contract, not you. So since they created that particular provision in your contract, how can you go back and say, well, no, I don't want to agree to it. I agreed to it, but I have my own indenture of trustee, which is you're the trustee, you're your own indenture of trustee now, to where now I have a special purpose vehicle that can facilitate this promissory note with me. Because at first you didn't have the vehicle to facilitate this type of transaction. You just had the estate to do the transaction. It's like you didn't have, it's like you got gas money, but you ain't got no car. It's like you got furniture, but you don't have a house to put it in. You see what I'm saying? It's the same notion. It's like if you got some roofing supplies, but you don't have a actual house to install the roofing material on. It's the same thing. So if you are doing a interest and dividend transaction and making them say, hey, I agree to these terms of this contract. I just want you to report good, positive payment history on my credit. I'm not even worried about it. You don't actually have a dog in the fight to be worried about it because you don't have a special purpose vehicle to facilitate this transaction until you get their trust. And now your trust is the vehicle that can facilitate this type of transaction. Because you have your own indenture of trustee, and you have a grantor, and now you having your own indenture of trustee and its beneficiaries. Now your beneficiaries will benefit from you being your own indenture of trustee. Make sense? Continue.
There is a leak in your retirement. It's been quietly dripping for years, behind the wall, where you can't see it. Everything looks fine, the balance is there, the plan is in place, but leaks don't care how hard you worked. They just run. The leak has a name, several, actually. Inflation, a dollar that buys less every year, market timing that can hit the hardest right when you can afford it least, global instability silently moving into your prices and your markets. Every one of them has been slowly draining the choices out of the retirement you
have lent to only safe people. But if there's a panic, if everybody suddenly thinks that the bank is going to go bankrupt, then it's everybody's interest to withdraw. And even if the bank is fundamentally safe, it will go bankrupt. It's just like, let's say, there's a party, right? We like to go to parties, but we like to go to parties if we think everybody else is there, right? There's no fun going to a party if you're the only one showing up. And it could be that the host has put on a perfectly good party, but I think that you're not going to go, and you think that I'm not going to go, then nobody goes, right? And so what this is called is an equilibrium. An equilibrium exists when what I am doing makes sense, given what everybody else is doing. Right? If everybody else is going to the party, I should go. But if everybody else is not going to the party, I should not go. So my behaviour depends on what everybody else does. And similarly with a bank, if everybody else believes the bank is solvent and is not withdrawing, then I don't need to withdraw because the bank's always going to have money. But everybody else is panicking, right, then it is actually rational for me also to panic and to withdraw my money because that's going to be in the other equilibrium where everybody withdraws. And so this is what we indeed had in things like the financial crisis, where actually things might have been fine, but because of a panic, then everybody was running and then causing the bank to run out of money. We saw things like this in the coronavirus crisis, where if everybody thinks there's going to be a shortage of toilet roll, everybody's going to run for that, and it's also going to lead to supermarkets going out of supplies. So what is the solution to this? The solution to this in most countries is deposit insurance. So within the UK, we have deposit insurance where everybody is guaranteed £85,000. So if I'm saving in a bank and it goes bankrupt, I get £85,000 back from the insurance And so this means that I am not rushing to withdraw. And notice this is £85,000 across every bank. So it is in my interest to, if I have more than £85,000, to spread it out across different banks. So if any bank goes bust, I can get back up to £85,000. And so what this does is it breaks that self-fulfilling prophecy, it breaks that bad equilibrium. If I don't actually need to worry about the bank going bankrupt,
Deep Discount Furniture and Mattress. We've been furnishing homes just like yours with the same name brand sofas, love seats, oversized sectionals, and lotion leather reclining furniture for thousands less. We've got everything you need.
Because of this insurance, I'm not going to withdraw, even if I see everyone else panicking. So you might think, well, did this even work, right? Why, then, did all of these people line up? And part of the reason is, unfortunately, the lack of financial literacy that we teach in schools, right? If you're a newspaper and you want to create headlines, you will say the bank is going bankrupt, let's go to the bank and take all our money. But that is irresponsible because there is deposit insurance. And so because of that, we don't need to worry in the same degree or even close to the same degree, which is why it's another reason that it's a pleasure to give lectures on things like this, because they might avoid situations which indeed broke the bank. Okay, so that's the first part of my talk, which is how do banks work? What do they do? Right, they borrow at low interest, lend at high interest. They create money to enable people to do transactions, but the big risk they have is maturity mismatch. They might go bankrupt even if they are lending in perfectly safe customers, because if everyone thinks they're going to go bankrupt, then you have this self-fulfilling prophecy. Let me now go to the second part of my talk, which is how the stock market works. So what is the stock market? It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a market where you buy and sell stocks. What is a stock? For those who weren't in my first lecture, a stock or a share is partial ownership in a company. I might own a share of Tesco, and what that means is it entitles me to a fraction of the profits that Tesco makes. Now, if I own shares, then I can get all the future profits from Tesco. But what happens if I need the money now? Because I want to go on holiday? I might try and sell my shares. And I might go to Claire and say, hey, we would like to buy my shares of Tesco. But she just might not be interested in Tesco. She might like other companies. I might go to other people within this room. But this will be quite futile, and I might waste a lot of time trying to do that. So again, let's go to an analogy of normal shops and normal goods. What happens if I want to buy carrots? Because I'm just going to be making a soup this evening which needs carrots. Well, I can go to my neighbour and I can say, well, do you have any carrots that you want to sell? But they might not have any. I can go to the next neighbour, but they might not have any, and it's going to be a waste of time.
There is a leak in your retirement. It's been quietly dripping for years. Behind the wall, where you can't see it. Everything looks fine. The balance is there. The plan is in place. But leaks don't care how hard you worked. They just run. The leak has a name. Several, actually. Inflation, a dollar that buys less every year. Market timing that can hit the hardest right when you can afford it least. Global instability silently moving into your prices and your market.
So what do? I go to a market. And so what I'm going to go to is a farmer's market. And so what is a market? It is nothing more than a place where lots of people are buying and selling the same thing. So if I go to a farmer's market, I can guarantee I'm going to be able to buy carrots, because there's multiple people selling them, and even if one or even five of them are out of stock, there will be one market store, at least, with carrots. So what markets do is they create what's known as liquidity. They make it easy to buy and sell things because there's a lot of people transacting in that common set of goods, which is fruit and vegetables for a farmer's market. And that's exactly what a stock market is. That is a place where people buy and sell shares. So if I want to sell my Tesco shares, I go to the stock market and sell them. And if I want to buy shares in Vodafone, I can go to the stock market, and I know there'll be people who are willing to sell them to me. But what does it mean to go to the stock market? Is it a place? How do we trade in the stock market? Well, what we have in the stock market is you have sellers, like a farmer in the farmer's market, and what they sell is shares. And just like they will quote prices for apples and bananas, they will quote prices at which they're willing to sell the shares for. And those prices are known as the ask price. Right, that's what they're asking you to pay to buy the shares. It's also known as the offer price. But the one big difference between the stock market and the farmer's market is also buyers can post prices. Right, that would be the analogy of me showing up at a farmer's market and saying, I'm willing to buy carrots for 10p, then anybody who wanted to sell to me can go to me and sell the carrots for 10p. And so what I would do is if I go to the stock market, this is known as posting a bid price, how much I'm willing to pay in order to buy one share of a stock. So you have both buyers and you have both sellers, and both of them are posting prices, unlike in the farmer's market where only one side is posting. And a trade happens when either a buyer accepts the ask price that a seller is advertising, or a seller accepts the price that a buyer is offering. And how do you show acceptance? Well, what it used to be was you had something known as open outcry. So those were signals where people would actually make signals on the stock market, which was a physical place, and you had physical trading through the show of hands. Now, that's something which is no longer the case. In the 1986 Big Bang, which was a deregulation, you no longer have this. Instead, what happens is it happens electronically. Now, who is it who actually trades? So these are people known as market makers. Well, she might put it back into the bank.
What's going on, everybody that entered into the chat new? I want to go back to this particular part right here because this is our sweet spot. Like, this is where we actually have a voice that comes in. He's quite knowledgeable on the stock market and telling you, how they raise capital, about selling the shares of their stock and this, that, and third. But we're not focused on what the bank is doing after they have already took our money. That's not our focal point. Our focal point is the transaction that happened from the time that we went and gave the bank our initial deposit. We're going to take our check. We get an ACH direct deposit into our bank account, or we do a cash out, or we do send it through cash out, or however we get the money into the account and it shows up as a deposit. I don't give a damn how you get the money in there. By cash, wire, a credit into the account. However you get it into the account, if it's showing up as a deposit, that deposit has been leveraged. That deposit has been loaned out for more loans. And I want to get back to this part because this is our niche. This is our niche. And we right here in this area right here. We're not we're not off on the stock market. We're not worried about what's going on in the stock market right now. I'm about to go to sleep in a minute. But we're not far off on the stock market, any of that. This is our niche. We were like right in this area right here, what I'm about to play.
And then the bank now has some extra £90. And then what will the bank do with that £90? It's going to lend out 90% of that, right? Because it's going to keep 10% in reserve, £9, and then lend the £81 to another borrower. And you can see how this will continue. That borrower will spend the money. The person who receives that money will put it back in the bank. And so what we have is a virtuous circle where money is being created, right? You take in some money, you lend it, then what you lend gets deposited back. And so what you have is a table which looks like this. We started with the original £100 of money, which was put in. £90 was lent, £10 was kept in reserve. That £90 was put back in the bank. 90% of that was lent. The rest was put in reserve, and so on and so forth. And in the end, after all of this is played through, if this keeps
Now I want to touch on something real quick. I want to show you all what is the actual name of the brokerage that actually do this lending that he's talking about. Disregard if I'm spelling that wrong. Yeah, all right. So if we look right here, it says that the QOFs are typically corporations or partnership that invest at least 90% of their asset in designated OZs. They must make substantial improvements to the property they invest equal to the original purchase value within 30 months of the acquisition. Now, the property doesn't have to be property in a sense of its intrinsic. It can be intrinsic value. That doesn't matter. We see right here on the other video, they just said that they take 90% and go and invest it. The qualified opportunity fund, they use 90% of his assets and go and invest it. Now let's look at where they're located on the 1099B. Still, it's doing this. Walk through. I want to see the damn form. Now, right here, and check on box 3, QOF. That's our lane. The date that is acquired, the date that you open up the account, the date that it closed or disposed of or transferred. It was the date that they did the transaction. So our main focal point is this 1099B. Because if they're doing this transaction, are we receiving any benefit from it? From them trading and leveraging our deposit? No, not at all. We're not receiving any benefit from this. But can you receive it? Yes. It says cost basis of the proceeds. Okay, it cost us $100. The proceeds from that $100 is $90. But they went. You got to keep in mind that the max that they can leverage out from our initial deposit that's just going to start out at $1,000 again is they can loan out from our one deposit times 10. So the proceeds from our deposit comes to 10,000. But they come back and credit our account the original $1,000 that we loaned them. Therefore, that makes the proceeds in itself 9,000. Check in box 3. It says check if the proceeds are from the qualified investment fund. What is the qualified investment fund, and how much do they take? They take right here. It says they take 90%. It said it take 90%. Now, what's on our chart right here? As far as the money creation, they lent 90%. So it's all, it's all a full system of everything that we have to go through, but it's fine. It's fine. Because now, I think I may be the only person online that's dropping this shit like this. And I don't mind, doing it. We just have to be like logically thinking when we actually do these, these mechanisms and these transactions, because we have to understand what's happening. Because once we try to go and recover, once this 90% is actually lent out, once they lend that out, that's capital gain for the bank, because now they're able to create more money off of the liquidity that they just gotten from us. At first, they didn't have the liquidity. We gave them the liquidity. So now, since we deposited the $100, they go and loan out. We deposited $100. They go loan out 90 of the $100, but they still do times 10. This is how they say it's staged. At the end of the stages, the max that they have done is 900. So they have created from our $100. The proceeds is 900. They have loaned out 900. But by them being able to actually loan out, we have created a capital gain for them.
It's happening. What happens is the bank overall has taken £1,000 of deposits, it's kept £100 in reserve, again 10%, and it's created £900 of loans. And so this is the most fundamental feature of what banks actually do. It is called money creation. Out of the original £100 that the bank has been given, it's actually created £1,000 of money in terms of the total amount that it's lent to customers and the total amount that it is created, it's borrowing from customers in the form of its deposits. And why is money creation so powerful? Right, because it allows people to do stuff that they might not be able to afford. But it allows the parents to pay the piano teacher when they might not have money, they could borrow it. It might allow somebody else to renovate their home. And so this is why banks have a positive role in society. It allows people to do things which their current finances might not have. Now, there's a couple of things I'd like to stress here. Right, the bank has created money, which is why I've called it money creation. But the bank hasn't made money, right? Because each time the bank lends money to somebody else, right, money has left the bank, but it's been replaced by the fact that it's owed the money. And if you look at the bottom line here, at the end, the bank has £1,000 in deposits. So customers like you and I have put £1,000 in the bank account. The bank owes us 1,000, but similarly, the bank owns 1,000. The bank has kept 100 in reserve, and the bank is owed £900 from all the mortgages and so on that it's lent out. So the bank's net position is zero here, right? It owes this, it owns that. Just like after one step, the bank's net position was also zero, so the bank hasn't made any money in the process. It's just allowed people to do transactions through creating money. But then you might think, well, how does the bank actually make money? Well, how the bank makes money is, as I mentioned on the second slide,
we don't care about how they make money.
Will be a 5% interest rate.
Our focal
but what
point.
it will charge its customers, its borrowers, will be 9%, and it makes money on the difference between that two.
Because we're mainly focused on what happens with our deposits that are going into the institution. So I just wanted to share that video. This is the first of many. This is my first time doing a first live stream on YouTube. So this has been I like it way better than Instagram. I can, be more hands-on with you all. I can interact a little bit better. I don't have to just be holding the phone while I'm talking to you or set up a boom and all this. I can do it more better. So this concludes this our first meeting. I'm going to end this live, and I want y'all to stay tuned. Make sure you go and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. And I'm gonna see you here in the progress portal. There's nowhere else, but we just going up. We're going up. Everybody who is here, and you guys stay and you follow what goes on and what's happening. You participate. You're gonna be able to see your times 10. That's a fact. You'll be able to see your times 10. Yeah, sure. I go on the QOF. Let me go to it. All right. So the QOF is basically it's like a brokerage for the bank. It's like their own internal broker where it's not like they just have our 90% and they just have it and they just issuing it out to random investors. No, it's going to a specific fund, which is the Qualified Opportunity Fund, or you can say an opportunity zone solely for investing. But it's not necessary. This particular let me go into let's go to the IRS and what they have for. Hold on, what the fuck was that? So this Qualified Opportunity Fund is solely for them to exchange equity. And our equity is the amount of money that we're putting into the account. But we don't get to see that equity. Yes. Yes. What program? It's the Claim Your Credit. It's the Claim Your Credit program. But we don't get to see that equity. They have a Pacific broker that is handling this 90% what he was talking about. So he was basically breaking down the fundamentals of how banking works. Okay, that's fine, right? The bank was able to get our deposit, do money creation, create the money from our deposit. Now we just have to go and turn around and claim the credit from the deposit. Now the credit comes in a sense of the withholding. Now, when we go and make the deposit and they go and loan out our deposit, creating more capital for that institution, like right here, when we see that you can defer federal income tax on eligible gains, including capital gains and qualified 1231 gains until you sell or exchange the qualified opportunity investment, whichever one is earlier. You see where they have December 31st, 2026. That's the end of the tax year. Qualified gain must be recognized before January 1st, 2027, not from a transaction with a related person. You must invest in the QOF within 180 days and realize the gain of exchange for equity. It's not debt. Correct. It's not debt because we're not getting a loan for the Qualified Opportunity Fund. The money is coming from our paycheck. The money is coming from our labor that we're actually going out here working and producing. We're not creating money. We're actually going out here and using our life force, our energy. We're using our life force to go and put money into it's like we're using our life. It's almost like that movie with Justin Timberlake, In Time. And what they were doing is they was actually working for more time, and time was the currency. So it's the same type of scenario. They was using their life force to create more time. So it's the same thing. We're using our life force to create more funds for the bank. We're creating the credit because our money is the real money. They're just creating credit on a computer that's spitting out numbers. But what we're putting into the institution, that is the real money. That is real. That is concrete because we're actually going out and earning the funds. That makes sense? But I'm finna lay it down, y'all. It's 2:07. This is my first live. Make sure y'all stay tuned. I'm finna ready to get all the kinks worked out on this right here. I probably not even gonna be on IG for too much longer. Hopefully I can get everybody that's on IG and we all just migrate over here to YouTube. And we're gonna create us a community right here on YouTube. All right. Yep, they're draining the life out of us, and that's the main thing. They're draining the life out of you. So, in order for them, they still have to work with the law of the universe. And I know a lot of people don't believe in the Galactic Federation, and whatever they do, they have to tell us. But these are universal laws. These are universal laws. So they can't be deceitful, but they can have bank secrecy acts that are put in place for the normal eye to not go and view. But you can request a FOIA. You can request a FOIA. I appreciate that. You can request a FOIA. So that conclude this. Hey man, I appreciate everybody that's here. I appreciate that everybody that came and stopped in and checked in. We found how I look at you all. We family. We family. I appreciate that. It's in the stand store. You'll be able to see it in the stand store. It's called Claim Your Credit. And look at those videos so you can get an idea on what's going on. It's videos. It's not just, templates or whatever. It's videos that's in there that's showing you. And don't go and actually do the process that's on those videos, because I'm going to go back and show you step by step on and explain to you how it works. All right. See you in the Republic. Signing out.